What's up, Achievers? Today I'm going to take you on a step-by-step journey on how to achieve your first handstand. Now, just because I'm giving you all the steps today doesn't mean you should do all the steps in one day. It takes a lot of time, patience, and practice to achieve handstands, but I hope that this tutorial gives you the confidence to know that you can get there eventually. But before we get started, I want to give you a little backstory. So back when I was 11 years old, I unfortunately had a gymnastics injury that resulted in me being in double leg casts for about 3 months. And at that time, gymnastics was life. It was everything to me. So I didn't want to stop going to practice. So I would show up every day in my double leg casts and I would do the one thing that I was able to do, which was handstands. At the time of my injury, I really wasn't that good at handstands. I was kind of wobbly, I was all over the place, I couldn't hold them for very long. But I was committed to continuing to go to practice, and since that was the only thing I could do, I practiced a lot. Now flash forward 6 months later, and I was at my first competition back. I had finally been cleared by my doctors that I could start to compete again. And the competition went okay, but at the end, they announced that they were going to do a handstand competition. And I was so excited because I had spent all those practices upside down. So we all kicked up into a handstand, and out of the hundreds of gymnasts there, I was able to hold the handstand the longest and was awarded the New England Handstand Champion Trophy. And I tell you this story not to brag, but to explain that mastering handstands takes a lot of time. It was consistent effort over the 6 months that I was injured that allowed me to actually outperform my competition. So today I'm going to show you everything from mobility and core drills to handstand progressions, but I want to remind you that this is not a quick process and to be patient with yourself as you learn the handstand. So the first thing we want to address before getting into any handstand drills is your mobility. So we want to take a look at if you can freely bring your arms all the way overhead, and if you can comfortably and without pain flex your wrists back 90 degrees. Those are going to be two really important things to be able to do before you start walking on your hands. So let's start by looking at shoulder flexion. That's the ability to get your arms overhead. To perform a handstand, your shoulders need to be able to flex to at least 180 degrees without your back arching or your rib cage flaring. So to test your mobility, lie on the floor with your back flat against the floor and your rib cage pressed down toward your body. From there, you're going to slowly raise your arms overhead and see if you can get them to touch the floor without letting your lower back arch or leave the floor and without letting your rib cage flare. If you can do this without pain or compensation, you most likely have the adequate mobility in your shoulders to continue on. But if you have trouble reaching the floor or you have some discomfort with raising your arms overhead, I would highly recommend starting with some mobility drills to work on your thoracic and shoulder mobility. The first thing I would recommend would be foam rolling. So the main areas to foam roll to work on your shoulder and thoracic mobility would be your upper back and your lats. We want to think about bringing your hands behind your head, pulling your elbows together, and really rolling slowly up and down that upper part of your back. When you're ready to go to your lats, you can extend one arm overhead and then roll up and down the whole side of your upper back. Foam rolling will help to reduce some of the tension in those areas, which will help you to move a little bit more freely through your upper body. After rolling out those areas, I'd also recommend doing some extensions over the roller. So you're gonna place your hands behind your head again, elbows in toward each other, and have the foam roller across your middle of your back. From there, keeping your butt on the ground, you're gonna extend around the roller. And we're trying to do this without letting your rib cage flare, just getting that extension through your upper back. After performing a few of these on your mid back, you can scoot yourself forward, have the roller come a little higher on your back, and perform a few more on the upper part of your back. After foam rolling, then you can start to mobilize and stretch your upper back and your shoulders. So let's start with a band lat stretch. You're gonna grab the band, you're gonna turn your palm so it's facing up toward the ceiling, and then you're gonna sit your hips back and allow your hand to reach forward so that that whole side of your back is getting a nice, good stretch. And one more for overhead mobility is gonna be what we call global extensions. So there are 2 levels for this one. The first level would be on the floor, starting in that same quadruped position. This time you're not gonna sit back toward your heels though, instead you're gonna slide your arms forward out in front of you. And as you do that, you're gonna think about bringing your chest and your armpits toward the floor. Once you get to your end range where it feels like a good stretch, just hold it there and breathe. If you get to a point where this feels really easy and your face is all the way against the floor, you can prop your hands up onto a bench and continue that stretch, continue to go a little bit further. So those are 3 of our favorite thoracic mobility drills. Now let's move on to the wrists. This is gonna be so important because extending your wrist to 90 degrees is just not something that we do on a daily basis. So it's gonna be fairly uncomfortable at the beginning. And even gymnasts and acrobats, they all do wrist mobility warm-ups before they perform, before they practice, because it's just such an unnatural movement to begin with. So really make sure that not only are you doing this daily as a way to loosen up your wrists, but especially as a warm-up before performing any of these handstand drills that we'll talk about later on. So here's a quick wrist mobility warm-up that you can perform daily. We're gonna start with palm pulses. So from all fours, place your hands on the floor, and you're gonna just lift the palm up and then place it back down. Lift up, place it back down. So you're keeping your fingers on the ground and just moving through your palm of your hand. After that, we're gonna turn our palms forward and we're gonna do some front-facing elbow rotations. So keeping your hands still, we're just thinking about turning your elbow pits forward and then bringing them back. Next, we're gonna do side-to-side wrist mobilization. So we're gonna face your fingers out to the sides, and you're gonna rock from one hand to the other. We're thinking about loading one wrist at a time. When you load that wrist, get your shoulder as far forward over your fingers as possible, and then shift over to the other side, and keep rocking back and forth like that. From there, you're gonna turn your hands back so that your fingers are pointed back toward your knees. Once you're there, you're gonna do some slight rocking forward and back to get that extra stretch in your wrist. Next, we're gonna flip your hands around so that your backs of your hands are on the floor and your palms are pointed up. Your fingers are still pointed back toward your knees, and you're gonna continue doing that forward and back rocking. And finally, place your hands flat on the floor, fingers pointed forward, and let's do some big rocks forward and back, trying to get that extra range of motion through your wrists as you bring your shoulders all the way forward and all the way back. All right, so now that we've covered shoulder mobility and wrist mobility, there's still one more thing that we wanna cover before getting into the actual handstand drills, and that would be core strength. It's not enough to be able to raise your arms overhead and extend your wrists if you can't control that range of motion. If you can't stabilize through your trunk, you won't actually be able to utilize that mobility to help you with your handstand. In order to get into an optimal handstand position where all the joints are stacked one on top of the other, you need to be able to achieve what gymnasts call a hollow body position. What this means is we have to be able to get ourselves into a flat back position as opposed to the natural arch that we have in our lower back. Diving right into hollow body drills can be a little bit too overwhelming at first, so I've included some drills here that help to lead you into some of those more advanced hollow body hold positions. So we're gonna start with a simple pelvic tilt. So here you're gonna stand up, place your hands on your hips, and we're gonna think about initially exaggerating the arch in your back. So you're gonna stick out your butt and stick out your chest. From there, you're gonna try to do the opposite. You're gonna take your thumbs and tilt your hips under and create this posterior tilt. That's gonna actually mimic this hollow body position that we're looking for. So just oscillate between those two, arching your back and tucking your hips to start to feel where your body is in space. From there, we can advance to a marching drill. So here we're gonna lay on your back, you're gonna have your arms by your side and your legs up at 90 degrees. And the first thing you're gonna do is again get that rib cage down and that lower back flat against the floor. From there, you're gonna practice keeping your back on the floor, but slowly marching one foot at a time to the floor while maintaining that ribs down, back flat position. Once this feels pretty manageable, then we're gonna progress to a dead bug. So we can use a stability ball for this. You're gonna hold it between your knees and your forearms. We're gonna, again, press that lower back down into the floor and then slowly reach your arm and leg out, extend them overhead, back in, and then alternate sides. We're gonna do that while maintaining that same positioning. Once dead bugs feel pretty good, then we can move on to these hollow hold positions. So we like to break them down into levels. So we're gonna start with a level 1 hollow hold, which is actually just grabbing your knees, bringing your chest toward your knees so that your upper back is off the floor and holding here. We wanna practice breathing and getting comfortable with your back flat against the floor. From there, we're gonna go into level 2, which is letting go of your knees, staying in that same position and not letting your back drop down toward the floor. After you get comfortable there, we can extend one leg out. So this is gonna be level 3. Once you're comfortable there, then we can start to bring our arms overhead. So level 4 would be arms straight toward the ceiling. Level 5 would be arms all the way overhead. We're still trying to maintain your lower back pressing into the floor with your upper back slightly off the floor. After you're comfortable there, we can extend that second leg out so both legs are straight, both arms overhead, and we're in this full length hollow body position. Now we want to get as comfortable here as possible, so ways that we can increase the challenge while still maintaining the hollow body position is to add some rocking, and that will actually make it even more challenging. Okay, so we've worked on some mobility, we've worked on some stability, now we can actually get into some of the handstand drills. The first drill we're gonna do is a wall plank. So the scariest part of handstands normally for any beginner is that feeling of being upside down. It can be really intimidating and it can be really overwhelming. So this wall plank allows you to not go fully upside down quite yet. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna start out with your hands a few feet away from the wall with your feet toward the wall. From there, with your hands shoulder width apart, you're gonna press into the floor and start to walk your feet up the wall. You should get to the point where you're at about 45 degrees and then just start to hang out there. We wanna try to breathe, we wanna try to relax, we wanna try to be able to get comfortable being upside down and being supported by our hands. When you're ready, you can slowly walk your feet back down the wall and you're back safely on the ground. After you've gotten comfortable with the wall plank, you can simply continue to walk your feet further up the wall until you're in a chest to wall handstand. What we're looking for in this chest to wall handstand are a few things. We wanna see that the hands are shoulder width apart. We want to see that the arms are locked out straight and the shoulders are up toward the ears. We want to see that the torso is in a hollow body position, that the legs are straight and locked together, and that the toes are pointed. As you get more and more comfortable with the chest to wall handstand, continue to walk your hands closer and closer to the wall. There's going to be a certain point where you're almost flat against the wall and you may feel like you could potentially go over. In that case, that's when you have to really concentrate on gripping the floor with your fingers to keep you balanced. Now, there are two safe ways to get out of a chest to wall handstand. One is to walk your hands forward and to walk or slide your feet down the wall similar to the way you did with the wall plank. The other option is a pirouette. To perform a pirouette, you're going to shift your weight to one hand, you're going to rotate your shoulders and your hips to one direction, and you're going to swing and step your legs down. It's going to look similar to the second half of a cartwheel. Once you're comfortable holding that chest to wall handstand, we're going to start to incorporate some drills that help you to feel like you're progressing toward a freestanding handstand. The first drill would just be a single leg hold. So simply take one foot off the wall and hold that way so that that one foot is actually completely stacked over the rest of your body. Step that foot back and switch legs, and you can keep alternating that way. The next drill would be a progression from the one leg drill, which would be wall scissors. In this case, instead of placing a foot back down and then lifting it back up, you're doing more of a scissor kick where you're alternating and you have that moment where both feet are actually off the wall at the same time, but you're quickly replacing one foot with the other. And one last drill here would be wall kickoffs, where you're actually kicking both feet off and holding that position as long as you can before bringing both feet back to the wall. All right, so the last progression before getting to the freestanding handstand is the back to wall handstand. And the big difference here between the chest to wall handstand and the back to wall handstand is that now you have to kick up into the handstand. And that can be a little bit scary for folks, so I'm gonna give you two different ways that you can approach this. The first way is a single leg kick up. Set up with your hands on the floor, one leg bent and one leg straight behind you. Get your hips over your shoulders as much as you can from the start. Then kick off the bent leg and drive that straight leg up. The second option is a tuck up. So for these, you're gonna place both hands on the floor, you're gonna jump up with both feet at the same time and tuck your knees in toward your chest. From there, you can actually meet the wall with your feet and slide your feet up the wall. Once you're in the full back to wall handstand, a very important thing here is going to be to try to maintain that hollow body position. It's going to be harder now because your feet are slightly behind you, so we want to practice some drills where we're getting your feet off the wall so you're getting stacked and being able to maintain that hollow position. Similarly to the chest to wall handstand, you can start by lifting one foot off the wall and holding, placing it back on the wall and lifting the other one off and holding. You can also do that same scissor drill, but now with your back toward the wall. It's important here to not kick off too aggressively because if you do, you won't be able to find that stacked position and you'll fall right down out of it. To do this, instead of thinking about kicking your feet off the wall, you want to think about gripping your fingertips into the floor, which will eventually, if you do it enough, slightly pull your heels off the wall and get you into that nice stacked position. This is going to set you up for a lot more balance and control as your feet leave the wall. All right, now we've worked on shoulder mobility, wrist mobility, core stability, handstand drills. It's finally time to practice the freestanding handstand. It's really important that you've spent a lot of time on these previous drills so that you feel comfortable being upside down, you're not intimidated by the idea of kicking up into a handstand, and this freestanding handstand shouldn't really be something that makes you nervous anymore. To start the freestanding handstand, kick up the same way you would for a back to wall handstand. Grip the floor with your hands, keep your elbows locked out straight, shoulders toward your ears, get that hollow body position with your legs straight and your toes pointed. When you find that stacked position, your body should feel weightless. Now that there's no wall behind you, you will need to know how to dismount. So if you're simply just ready to come out of the handstand, split your legs and step down one foot at a time. You don't want to just crash down with both feet because that's going to be a lot of pressure down on your feet and your ankles. You can also tuck your knees and do the reverse of the tuck up if that's how you've been approaching the handstand to begin with. If you kick up too hard and you feel like you're going to go over, don't panic. We're going to do the pirouette. So just like we did with the back to wall handstand, you're going to load one hand, split your legs, rotate through your hips and shoulders, and step down one foot at a time. Try not to crash down or roll out of the handstand. The pirouette is definitely the safest way of dismounting if you feel like you're going over. So like I said in the beginning, learning a handstand can be a long journey. So don't worry if you feel like it's taking you a long time. Keep practicing your mobility drills and your stability drills and gradually work your way up toward those handstand progressions that I've laid out for you. And remember that the most important thing about handstands is to have a ton of fun doing them. If you like this video, please hit that thumbs up button below and subscribe if you haven't already. And until next time, peace, love, and muscles.